Awesome. So the Justin Michael method, how long have you had this method? You've driven 1 billion in revenue. I like that you've coined this term. Dive into this for us.
Yeah, so I've been in sales for 20 years and I started building out pieces of this method. I would even say in my late 20s, around 2007, is like the cold call method, which I
Yeah.
call route, ruin, multiply. But the reason I can claim that big of a number is I open source these 17 guides, which I call the codex guides or the codices. I put them on Reddit and probably, a stadium or two of people downloaded them. And they're counterintuitive techniques that really fundamentally question every element of outbound over the last 100 years. So they work by virtue of Napoleonic strategy as much as they're signal in the noise. Like you subconsciously see something different. If an email looks like a text message, or I send you a Venn diagram with your company in the middle, something like that.
Awesome. So walk us through the method. What does it look like kind of start to finish? Break down the science for us.
I don't get asked that a lot, and I think there was a chapter in the book that said it's like 7 pillars, but now I just train around that. Somehow didn't make the final edit. So the way I see it, right, is the funnel. There's 10,000 trainers. There's a million books, and once a piece of business is in, you have like Challenger, Sandler, qualification things like Spin and Medic, and command of the message, value selling, solution selling, and on and on to progress and close. But at the very top of the funnel, you have maybe like Grant Cardone, Jeb Blunt, Jordan Belfort. You have a few loud
Mm,
voices, right?
yeah.
So, and of course, Sandler is very well known. So rather than copy any of those, I thought, what would be the most rigorous possible methodology ever at the top of funnel? And so I wrote this bestseller called Tech Powered Sales in 2020, and Aaron Ross wrote the forward. And this was about automating 75% of SDR. And that was back from experiments I did 2017, 2018, where I sent 5 million emails. And overall, I've done about 20,000 hours of cold calling, right? I just turned
Wow.
44. I've been in the game
Yeah.
half my life now, right?
That's
So
awesome.
the pillars are: one, targeting, triggers, and time management, reimagining that;
Okay.
two, email, sequencing, one-off emails, syntax. I have a process called heuristics, which is like meta-analysis of linguistics. Three, reimagining social selling. Four, video and visual prospecting. Five, we've got things like Chat GPT, and I think I've probably hit seven in there. Um, C-level skills, like this thing called the fourth frame, which is exactly how to communicate over LinkedIn. And I basically just challenge the prevailing order. So the first tombstone revelations, like on my tombstone, are: one, email is not words, it's visual. So emails should look like text messages and ad units. That was a head explorer. Email is
I like
visual.
that.
So
Yeah.
emails should be like product marketing. It should be Venn diagrams, should be
Right.
product diagrams, GIFs, video. And it's very hard because most of the video platforms, it's a link. So they see the link and they
Mm,
don't want to click it. They're like, it's a trap. But over
yeah.
LinkedIn, first degree, you can drop a video DM that plays in line. Um, I have a different cluster sequence that challenges the Agoge from, Sam Nelson, blue hair. So I rethought the frequency of email. I have a chat choreography called the fourth frame. And one client I have, Luke Shalom, drove $250,000 off just that technique.
Super
And
cool.
then the way that I use ChatGPT and AI is very subtle so that it still looks human. I don't become over reliant on that.
Mm,
I wrap all the communication in something called heuristics, which are like shortcuts or formulas. So that's it in a nutshell.
okay. Yeah, I'm really curious to hear more about the heuristic side of this.
I wish I could share a slide, but essentially, if an email is brief, like brevity, if it's under 50 words, it converts 60% higher. If an
Amazing.
email has visuals, the brain processes it 60,000 times faster than words. Therefore, one image in an email is like 27 touches. Now, it
Wow.
won't fit on the first email because of the spam gate. So I send
Right.
very short text-based email on the first email, bump it day 2 with thoughts, and day 3 drop the payload of a Venn diagram or a GIF.
That's awesome.
Other heuristics: social proof but relevant, specificity. How many times we hear, hey, I have an AI, you're going to get 200% growth and 10x your business, and it's AI.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
vague, vague, vague. So one of my heuristics is BS alarm. I call BS. But the big two, when I was sending millions of emails, I'd make them extremely short and tighten up the sequences to clusters. So I'm the first person in history to say, I email day 1, day 2, and day 3 over 72 hours. So I get in 7 touches over the first 72 hours, which are called B swarm.
Interesting.
And the other heuristic, not just short, is pain, fear, emotional resonance, because people are pain averse and risk averse and loss averse, but
Yeah.
all the messaging is optimistic. You can make all
Yeah.
this money with this amazing feature, and that really is too salesy. It repels. So I'd say like those are the really big ones, like storytelling, and then doing this all in these spears with no paragraphs or line breaks is key. And it's a lot of reverse psychology, I would say.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, as far as who should read your book and who should maybe go with something um, more entry level, it sounds like this is more for people who have been in the space long enough to figure out, these are optimizations you can make when you really understand your processes and the overall sales cycle. But it doesn't sound like this is maybe a good starting place for people that are just getting started. Where would you agree with that statement or disagree?
I think learning outbound is more like tennis. I have trained over 1,000 people. A lot of these are 22-year-olds. They've never done this work before. I was part of a book called Combo Prospecting. So the idea of triples and quads really comes out of my work, although it's been used for the triple threat with Jeb Blunt. This is a method that works because it's different than the other methods. If you're new to the game, this will put you at the top 1% in the industry immediately.
Love
My
it.
book, when I released it, Sales Superpowers, was number 1 for 2 months in both sales and marketing the same
Su-
time. And I think that because
That's awesome.
demand gen leaders have the SDRs, but the old techniques of doing SDR work, like permission-based openers, basically the first 3 seconds of phone calls for 11 million sellers is wrong from a neuroscience perspective. And I can explain why, because this typically is controversial.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, feel free. Go down that path.
Yeah, so I first got in trouble because I said that there's no way to do personalization at scale. And I mean that because if I send you an email and I send, 1,000 emails and I know what Chinese food restaurant you like down the street, you're not looking to eat right now. You're looking to make more money or save money, reduce risk. Like, it's
Right.
personalized, but it's
Yeah.
cheesy. You're like, that's cool. I do like Chinese food, right? So going into permission-based openers is concept from Oren Klaff called frames. Whoever has the higher status wins. You see it in Sandler
Right.
with equal business stature. So if I call you and say, hey, could I get 30 seconds of your time? You're thinking, it's not a 6-figure product. It's 30 seconds. It's got to be cheap. So you immediately commoditize yourself. If I call you and say, did I catch you at a bad time? Trying to get you to say, no, you've heard it before.
Right.
It's been fatigued. You've heard it too many times. If I say, hey, this is a cold call. Can I roll the dice? It's kind of just like cheesy. I've lowered my status. And the big one is like, you don't know me and I'm reminding you, I'm soliciting you. So if I'm asking permission, can I get 30 seconds of your time? I'm kind of bowing down to you. I'm kind of like still or sparkling, like I'm putting myself as inferior. So
Yeah.
now the question is like, what do you do instead? Well, in human
Right.
communication, one, when you interrupt a prospect, you trigger the amygdala, which is their old brain, the croc brain. I'll hat tip to Warren Claff on calling that, but it's the lizard brain, right? And basically it's fight or flight because you interrupt a stranger. They're annoyed, they're irritated, they're angry. If you then
Mm,
say the reason for my call, if you use logic, there's nothing you can say. Again, if you call someone and start talking, you lose. The person
right.
listening controls the call. So my cold call framework is Matthew McQuinn. Yes. Hey, Justin Michael from Acme. Just curious, who's in charge of your marketing automation? I am. So I get them to say that they're the powerful one. And then I say, which tech do you normally use? And they just start running through their tech stack. So
Cool.
in the
Yeah.
first, I get people to talk to me for like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, even 10 minutes. And then the polarity shifts. And then I pitch way later. And then they ask me to pitch them. And they ask me permission to bring colleagues. And I've done a ton of exhibitions
Mm,
on this, but I call it route, ruin, multiply, or route, ruin, rip. And I've trained hundreds, probably over 1,000 people at this point on this. And it really challenges other types of call openers that have been used the last 100 years.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, that's the first I've heard that angle. And Oren Claff is a fantastic resource. Have you have you kind of married yourself to one channel in particular that you really believe in? Cold calling, email, LinkedIn, other?
I think you need to understand them all and do them all differently, or at least align them in a way that is aligned with neuroscience, relationship dynamics, and game theory. But it's also having an understanding of how similar all the other techniques are. So
Mm,
if all your competitors, if you got a hold of their emails and you could switch out your name for theirs, there's a huge problem. So what I like to do is phone is always the tent pole of the
Okay.
strategy. I always leave voice messages. I leave 4 to 5 voicemails every time. Everything I do is a blended combination or like triples, asynchronous doubles. What I mean by that is it's running in a sequencer and then I'm calling in and leaving voicemails. And then I'm also working LinkedIn. I'm also
Did you
working
say you're
WhatsApp
leaving
and
4 to
DM.
5 voicemails for a single prospect?
Always 4 to 5.
Really?
And Jeb Blunt got up to 50. I think his record was like 400 once. He like called someone every day for a whole year. I put that, that was one of the case studies in combo prospecting. But um, if you can get your voice on the phone many times, your email open rates explode and your LinkedIn. A lot of times they say sorry, but
Interesting.
here's the thing. I talk to high level decision makers. So let's say the decision maker is on Salesforce and I do 7 touches in 48 hours to get HubSpot. They look, they're like, nope, we just signed for Salesforce. It's the same outcome as 11 weeks of drips. So I won't
Incredible.
name names, but these
Yeah.
other some of my rival coaches and trainers have all these elaborate personalization techniques that take weeks and months.
Mm,
I mean, I ran an agency as a VP of ops, so like I have an answer to every prospect. I mean, everyone must react. It's Craig Kleeman quote, but like my techniques are like just really pattern interrupt. They see your number, like you call the phone, they miss it. You leave the voicemail, they miss it. They connect on LinkedIn, and what they do is they finally read the damn thing
mm,
and then they react. And if they need the thing, they'll take the meeting or not. The time is an illusion. It doesn't get better in 7 weeks. If you're the kind of person that's like,
yeah,
well, I'm so offended by your style of outreach, I won't buy. Like, that's not a real buyer. I'm a real buyer. If you get in my face with
yeah,
something that'll really help me, I'll take a look at it and I'll just give you a yes or no. Like, that's
right.
how real decision makers are. I've found I might lose a few prospects that way, but I generate tons of pipeline. And I have been doing that for the last 8 years, especially.
What industries have you used this methodology in?
Not only every industry on earth, but I'm pretty sure I'm in most languages through the Nordics, DOC, the whole German market, all of Australia, Canada, across manufacturing, heavy metals, real estate, insurance, and then all SaaS and big tech from NASDAQ traded Fortune 500 everywhere, because it
Exceptional.
deals with a human problem, which stranger on the phone, not interested, stranger in my inbox, stranger in my DM. And those 3 flows are different psychologically because
Yeah.
especially direct messages on LinkedIn is very intimate. Here's the stranger, get it out of here.
Mm,
So I make my LinkedIn messages look like text messages. I tap them out, funky grammar, spelling mistakes. It's not something you would automate. And that's what it signals like, oh, this could be a real person. Although, because of
yeah.
my cyborg past, I'm always accused of using VAs.
I like that. What's the volume? Is there like a ratio? If you want a certain outcome, you send a certain amount of total touch points or total prospects that you're working. You know, what are those numbers or ratios that you try to follow?
So the most important thing is it's like a pyramid. The lower down the pyramid, the more frequency you can use, and the higher up, the more semi-automated to even manual and the more hyper personalization. Now we're living in a world of volumizers like Eric Nowslowski, who's a client. He just did a webinar with Hormozy. There's this company called Clay.com. What people are doing is they're getting smart lead and they're getting instantly and they're buying 5 to 15 domains, rotating the IPs, warming them all,
Right.
and they're going for volume like it was 2017 again. Problem is
Yeah.
everyone smart is doing that. So we actually have more email spam than ever now because
Mm,
Google's restricted it to sell ads and it's gotten crazy. So now it's like an arms race to
yeah.
find out how many different domains you can get, how to warm them, how to rotate the IPs, and everyone's like RevOps heavy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you can take an ABM approach, account-based marketing flipped to ABSD, account-based sales development, which I credit to Lars Nilsson over at Snowflake and True Ventures, then you can get intentional about a couple hundred key accounts in the 80-20 rule and just trying to go really hard at 50 accounts, max
Yeah.
100 accounts, and then get 5 to 7 to 11 to 24 stakeholders and run it like a political campaign and use direct mail like Dale Dupree and Stu Heineck. So it's like
Yeah.
omni-channel, creative, political. It's got all these connotations. Like it's kind of, you have to max the volume because even one person get 50 Gmails a day. You get like 100 particles out of LinkedIn, maybe with
Mhm.
automation, maybe 40.
Yeah.
Like the throttle's low. So like you should use all your in-mails. Like you should use
Right.
use everything you've got because it's a trickle now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So if you were to, like, when you take on a new client and they say, "Hey, I'm at, I don't know, let's call it 30,000 a month. I want to get to 90,000 or 100,000 a month." What are you telling them volume wise they need to be doing? Like, is it just like hit that 3 to 400 a month mark and do this process consistently, or is there kind of a ratio that you follow?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm advising someone on a cold email program or just an outbound program generally,
An outbound program in general. Yeah.
I think it's like really important that every rep on the team is doing at least 50 triples a day. I think more important than anything, like the list is the strategy, which is like a Joey Gilkey quote. But basically, you need to invest in your data. So Zoom Info, everybody has it. It's a baseline. I have a
Mm,
team of VAs in India, a team of 30 that go groom Zoom Info and hit other data sets against it. So I'm going to get
right.
my data to 98%. I'm going to have a human verified and pre-called. So my phone numbers are 98%. Then Connect and Sell did a study, and 50% of the meetings set are through fully navigated dials, so switchboards and through gatekeepers. So if you're only going after cell phones, that's a red herring. Lead IQ has great data for that. The goal is you just need working numbers. You need a number that is
Yeah.
the person. You need to be willing to live a lot of messages. I would say do them all manually, although you can drop them. So a couple things you need a really great data operation, and then you need a parallel assisted dialer. And there's only a
Right.
few on the market. There's like Connect and Sell, Orem, Concert with a K, Monster Connect, and Salesfinity. There's really only five. Think like Henry Ford. Like if I had asked them, they only wanted faster horses. It's 2024. If you're sending one email at a time, you're toast. If you're dialing the phone one at a time, you need 4 to 10 dials at a time, hot switched to you. That's the SEP and the pad, sales engagement platform, pro-assisted dialer. And then all the issue is just data. People have
Yeah.
50% clean data. So,
Yeah.
I mean, before going for volume, just fix your data. You'll probably get farther. It's expensive. Drop a head count and invest in all
Right.
this.
Yeah. So when you find prospects that are good companies for you, you've got a lead for them, but let's say you only have an email and you don't have a phone number, how do you treat those particular prospects? Because we run into that a lot in the data we provide. About 20% when people request a direct dial, we actually find the direct dial. Although we have direct email for them, 80% of that list doesn't actually have that mobile number for that particular lead. So what would you do with data in that situation?
So like I'm like the ocean wave. Like I always get to the target. So if the phone number fails, I try switchboard. If that fails, I try email. If the
Yeah.
email fails, I'll try different nomenclature of the email and start bouncing some emails. If that all fails, I'll just fire off an in-mail. I'll look for
Yeah.
an open profile if it's open. I'll look for an internal referral. I might even mail something to their office. But the other big one is on LinkedIn. You have the profile and people also viewed, and people
Hmm.
turn this off because it's so powerful. But if I can't get to you, I start calling all the people you work with that LinkedIn keeps showing me associated to you at any company. I'm like, I keep trying to get to Matthew McQuinn, and your face keeps coming up. Do you know him? Oh yeah, I play pickleball with Matt. He's awesome. Yeah, can you give me a cell? Because I got this
Right.
idea. So I've opened up like a massive Fortune 500 deal, like chief digital officer, Fortune 100. Never answered anything, emails, and I had all the working phone numbers. I found a VP of financial planning and analysis. These two big office companies merged. I called this VP. His name was Vern, Jamaican guy. Picks up the phone. Totally loved the value prop. Gave me the cell phone of the chief digital officer. Called him, left a voicemail, shot an email, and then I went into my own CEO's LinkedIn profile, shot a message, and we landed the meeting. We flew to Florida and did like a $400,000 deal. So like
Unreal.
it can be done. Another great story is I got to the CMO of Marriott. I saw a quote in Wired magazine. I had a
Yeah.
geofencing, geotechnology, and mobile marketing. It's Friday afternoon, probably 7 p.m. back east. Called and I was like, I read your quote in Wired magazine. I have this exact technology solves the problem.
Yeah.
So called, left a voicemail, then sent an immediate email, same subject, said your quote in Wired. Within 15 minutes on a Friday off of mobile, I got a response, forwarded me to England. From England, I did the same process there. They forwarded me to Plano, Texas. I was on a plane 3 weeks. I'm just sitting in
Incredible.
Manhattan and use these techniques. So like I'm making
That's
things
awesome.
happen all over the world just using these
Yeah.
techniques. It's obvious that people aren't persistent enough. They're not hitting enough channels and they're giving up way too early.
Yeah.
And yeah, so this is a lot of fun, man. It flies by.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, we've only got a moment here left before we got to wrap up. So, if people want to learn about this process, where do you recommend they start with your content, resources, books? Where should somebody start if they're in the early stages of learning this stuff?
I think go to Amazon.com and just type in Justin Michael and under books. And the new green book, Sales Superpowers, is just it's one-on-one, right? It's like the mindset that I took to go from making 45K to 7 figures and helping a lot of companies, hit 10 million run rate and beyond.
Beautiful.
It's really a blueprint on these techniques. And then also the Codex guides, which you can get off this, which is Hype Cycle. We have a community. So if you look for like the Justin Michael Codexes, you'll find them. They're kind of viral guerrilla guides that went all over Reddit.
Awesome. Listen, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for sharing your knowledge here with us and with me. Really appreciate this. And if somebody wants to try and reach out to engage you for, your agency service to implement this stuff, where do they go?
Just LinkedIn, just Justin Michael. I don't even have a website. That's the best way to go. I've got a coaching marketplace with my co-founder, Julia Minchinsky, which is called hardskill.exchange. That's a place where I can do coaching with you. And other than that, thanks for the promotion. This is great.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thanks, Justin.